Hello. Today in session 2, we are going to be taking a close look at the details the author provides us about the setting of the story. So just to review, in session 1, we read our pages from our calendar, and we identified and located details about the main character so that when we were reading, we would be able to clearly visualize this character in our mind to kind of help us with comprehension. So today we're going to identify and describe the setting, read session 2 pages, which you've been previously assigned Friday last week, and then complete the session 2 mini lesson application handout. So whether you're going to do that on paper or digitally, we'll talk about that later on in the video. So today you're going to need your book club book, your calendar to make sure you know what pages you're talking about, and the application handout, whether it's digital or paper. So when we're reading, we really want to look at the details the author gives us to help us know when and where this event takes place in the story. So my story, I got lucky, it's told in journal format. So I do know this begins, there's part 1 is spring. So it says spring. And then it's a series of journal entries beginning on May 7th. So May 7th, life as usual for her. But it doesn't tell me a year. But I think I kind of figured out I look at some details. They have computers that she's doing her papers for school on. They have cars. They have seems like house phones, perhaps, that her dad is calling her on because her parents are divorced. And she's trying to, give the phone to her mother or have them listen in on other home phones in the house that are connected to the same line. It doesn't really say much about being on cell phones, and this is a 16-year-old girl. I feel like if this were now, she would be on Instagram or Snapchat all the time with her friends, but she's really not. She's on skating forums online, so we do know there's internet. And they talk about communication satellites. But one of the things they give me that's a really good clue is they're talking about the president's press release on CNN. So we know that's definitely not Donald Trump. But this is from 2006. So he does mention the president is at home on his ranch. Oh, I can't remember where it is. In Texas. So if you guys know who was president before Barack Obama, it was Texan George W. Bush. So it was George Bush. And the author seems to not really like him that much because she uses the mother's character to kind of bash him and say she doesn't really like the president. So just those couple of clues, tell me this is the early 2000s during George Bush's presidency. Sometimes you won't get as clear of a picture of that, or even if you do see something like that, you might not put 2 and 2 together because you weren't, alive or old enough to remember George Bush and the fact that he had a ranch in Texas. But the author will sometimes put little details like that throughout that will help you to, figure out exactly when this takes place. So making inferences from the details, again, they're not going to be, having cell phones as much. In 2006, when this was published, this would have been written, with the knowledge before that. Most kids did not even have cell phones at all. If you did, you paid by the minute. And so I'm just kind of making inferences that they're going to have a hard time being connected to each other. Once these events occur, like worldwide tidal waves, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, there's going to be a lot of mass chaos. There's going to be people aren't going to know what to do, and they're probably going to have to leave their home. They're kind of far inland, but not far enough that maybe if the tidal waves surge a lot, that they're going to, be just devastated by that. So just making inferences. So think about what you know about the world and how these types of things would work in your story. What can you know about what's going to happen in the setting? Are they going to be prepared to stay where they're at? Are they going to be forced to leave? And just looking at those kinds of details. And also making predictions. So I predict that, again, like I said, my characters are going to have to leave. I doubt that they're going to be able to stay put. I don't think they're probably near volcanic eruptions because I know those are most of the Pacific Ocean, Yellowstone perhaps. But they're on the east coast of the country, not far enough that they're flooded yet, like New York and New England and Florida, but they're far enough over there that I don't really think that the volcanic eruptions are going to be a big problem for them. Earthquakes, I haven't really heard of many happening on the East Coast. I think mostly that's also West Coast. There is a fault line near southern Illinois, so it could affect, the East Coast a little bit, but not much. So just making predictions, like I think they're going to have to flee, but they're not going to be able to go too far west in the country because there's going to be other things going on. They're probably going to maybe try to check in on her dad, who's got a pregnant wife, and so that's going to force them to have to flee. So just thinking about, what's going to be going on in the setting of the story. Are they going to be staying where they're at? Are they going to be forced to go? Are they going to be able to find the resources they need? And just looking at it like that, making predictions. So as far as completing your handout, paper-wise, you have the same questions as you would digitally, but you also have to make a little sketch of what you think of the setting. And then digitally, it's an assignment, 3 questions. One thing I want to make sure I am stressing is that you are going to use complete sentences as well as text evidence. I know I shouldn't have to be with you guys to say that. You're in 7th and 8th grade. You should be writing your worksheet answers in a complete sentence for language arts class all the time without, any questions or having to ask. And using text evidence. So if you can use page numbers or, quotes, those are perfect. If not, you can just paraphrase what the author said. But just talk about things that are actually happening in the story to help me know that you can, talk about things that happen in the story and use that to explain your answers. Okay, so in this lesson, you just identified the setting, located some descriptions of it, kind of made some inferences based on what you know about the world and how their setting is going to play out, and then make some predictions about what you think will happen in the future. Okay, well, I hope you have a